grade 6, Miss Bond here. So here is problem number 1 for the math this week. The problem says Claire was helping her dad do some gardening. Her job was to carry concrete patio stones to the backyard for the walkway. Her dad ordered 8 blocks that weighed a total of 46 and 8/10 of a kilogram. It's a two-part question. A, how much does each block weigh? And B, if Claire carried 2 blocks at a time, how many kilograms would she be lifting? Okay, so when I have any kind of a word problem, I like to kind of break things down. So that's what I did over here on this piece of paper. So, and you can do this on paper as well. You don't have to do it online. You can do this on paper and then just take a picture and post it to Classroom and we can go from there. But anyway, back to the question. So I wrote down what I know from the question. So the question tells me that the 8 patio blocks equal 46 and 8/10 of a kilogram. So I know the total amount of kilograms. What I don't know is how much each block weighs. So I have little question marks in my blocks here. So, and because I know a total and I'm breaking it down into individual blocks, I know that I'm doing a division problem. So there's my division problem there. So 46 and 8/10 of a kilogram divided by 8 is going to tell me how much each of my patio blocks is. So it's important, especially at this stage when we're just kind of learning how to divide and multiply with decimals, that we make estimates. So I have right here an estimate for the first part of this question. So I took my original question that I just created, my algorithm, and I put 46 and 8/10 of a kilogram and I divided that by the 8. So when we're usually like rounding numbers and things like that, we usually kind of go to the nearest whole number. But when it comes to estimating in division, what you're actually going to do is you're going to try to find a multiple of your divisor. So 46 is not divided evenly by 8. 8 is, if you count by 8, you're not going to get to 46. But you will get to 40 and 48. So 48 is close. So 48 divided by 8 is 6. So if I'm making a good estimate here, I'm saying that my patio blocks are just under 6 kilograms here. It's about 6 kilograms, but I know it's less because I increased with my weight here. So I increased the weight, so that means that this is increased a little bit as well. So it's a little bit under 6 kilograms. So 6 kilograms is a great estimate. All right, now I'm going to show you over here 2 different ways that you can divide. So the first way I'm going to show you is division using partial product. So that's like our stacking method, grade 6, if I'm talking about partial product. And over here I have just regular old long division. So I'm going to show you that way too, the traditional way, because some of you do use that way. The main difference between these two methods is that when you're doing partial product, you're actually looking at the whole number. And you're going to solve using products. So you're going to use your multiplication tables to help you here. To solve this, you're going to be looking at the whole number under here. While in long division, we actually break down the place value to solve. So that's the main difference between those two types. So when the parents get really confused about partial product, that's why. Because we're actually talking about the whole number. We're not breaking down the place values here. So with partial product, and any division. I'm trying to hold my camera with my other hand here, guys. I'm sorry if you can't really see great. We're going to ignore that decimal place. And the reason we do that is because, well, actually, the reason we estimate is the reason we ignore that. We can ignore that. Because we know that the answer is going to be about 6, we can place the decimal in the quotient when we're finished. So we can look at this as a whole number, thinking of it not as 46 and 8/10, but as 468, okay? So what I'm gonna do on the side here, I have this little bar on the side, I'm gonna use my multiplication facts to help me solve this problem. So you can use like helper facts and start with like 10, then go up to 100 or go 10, 20, 30, and multiply that by your divisor over here. And then you're going to get something really close to 468. So I'm going to use my multiplication facts here. I know that 8 times 5 is 40, and 5 tens is 50. So 50 times 8 would be 400. So I'm going to put 50 on the side here. Now, I'm putting 50 on the side because I'm multiplying 8 times 50 to get the 400. So I'm taking 8 groups of 50 away from 468. Okay, so that's why I'm subtracting that, because I already divided 400 of the 468. So now I'm left with 68. So now I'm left with 68. I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did to get that 50 on the side there. I'm going to use my multiplication tables. So I know that 8 times 8 is 64. And I'm going to divide that 64 up, which is why I have to subtract there. Now, here's the only downfall with this partial product. I mean, I could keep going with this, but a lot of people get confused when they get to this part, because you're like, okay, well, I have a remainder 4, and when the remainder is less than your divisor, you can't go any further unless you start adding place values. Now, with partial product, you could put a 0 on here. It wouldn't be changing your number, and you can solve it out. But at this stage, we're okay with just stopping at this point. So what you can do is just kind of ignore that remainder and still use your stacking method over here. So when you add 50 and 8, you're going to get 58. Okay, so I'm going to put 50 at the top there. But it's actually not 58 because we took the decimal place away. Remember that? So when we did our estimate over here, excuse me, we had 6. So we know the answer is going to be close to 6. So we have to place our decimal in this answer that's going to give me something close to 6, which is 5 8/10 of a kilogram. I'll put that in there. There we go. Okay, so that's the partial product way. Now, over here, I'm going to do the old-fashioned long division traditional method. Okay, so some of you do use this method. So I am going to do it this way to show you. You don't have to do it this way. Partial product is great. So like I said before, with long division, we're breaking up the number by place value. So essentially what we're doing is we're kind of asking how many 8s fit in to 4, how many 8s fit into 46, how many 8s fit into 468. So we are asking essentially the whole number, but we're breaking it down by place value. Sorry, I should have glassed some water. So when we're doing this problem out, I don't have to worry about putting a line down the side and breaking anything as products, but I'm going to actually go into each place value. You can still ignore the decimal place here. It doesn't really matter if you cross it or not. You don't really need to. But you still need to make sure that you place that decimal properly according to that estimate of 6, right? That's 6 kilograms. So, okay, so traditional method. Does 8 fit into 4? No, it does not. So because it doesn't, we're going to kind of assume that there's a 0. Okay, I'll write it here just to show you this. You don't need to write it there, but I will. It doesn't. No 8s can fit into 4. But if you look at the next place value here and put the 4 with the 6, it's like 46 hundredths essentially if you ignore that decimal place. So 8 goes into 46 5 times. Okay, so 5 times 8 is your 40. Okay, so that's what we're going to subtract here. So now we're going to bring down the next place value. So see how we're kind of breaking this up into place values here? So the reason we did this, same reason as we did over here, we used this 40, and again, it's not 40, it's 400, it's 40 tens, so 40 tens is 400. So we're using up this 40 tens, and we're taking away from the 46 tens that we have up here, leaving us with 6. And then we bring down the 8, so now we're looking at 68, because again, we kind of ignore that decimal. And then the 8 fits into 68 8 times. 8 times 8 is 64. We're going to use up 64. And we're left with 4 left. Now, we stopped over here at that point as well. So you can continue on though. So we talked already about how when we add zeros to the ends of numbers, that doesn't change the value of the number. It just shows the place value. So here I can bring down the 0 and actually keep going. So 8 goes into 45 times. 5 times 8 is 40. I'm left with no remainder. I have 3 place values now though, but I'm still going to go back to that estimate of 6. So to place my decimal properly or appropriately, I need to make this number reasonable with my answer. And my answer is 5 and 85 hundredths of a kilogram. Now, part 2 of the problem, here's the second part of the problem here, is that Clara was going to be carrying 2 patio stones. So with multiplication, you could use we found that each patio stone was 5 and 85 hundredths of a kilogram. If she carried 2 of them, we can multiply, or we can actually add them. So it's kind of like a preference of what you want to do here. This is a good way of me showing you how to multiply with the decimal. Very similar to division actually, because you're ignoring the decimal place again. So I did the stacking method here. I ignored my decimal place. Make an estimate first. Actually, that's the first part of this question I left out of this video. You're supposed to make an estimate of how many 2 patio stones. So if 1 patio stone is about 6, 2 would be about 12. So when you multiply 5 and 85 hundredths of a kilogram times 2, you should have something close to 12. So I broke down the place value, ignoring the decimal. That 5 is worth 5, so 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 8, it's in the tens place, so it's 80. So 2 times 80 is 160. 16, and then put my 0 on there because of place value. And then 2 times 5 is actually 2 times 500. 2 times 5 is 10, but it's 100, so 10 hundredths equals your 1,000. Adding them up, and then I had to place my decimal accordingly, which is why I placed it between the 1 and the 7 there. So I have an answer. If Clara was carrying 2 patio stones, she'd be carrying 11 and 70 hundredths of a kilogram, or 11 and 7/10 of a kilogram. And adding up, using some regrouping there, there's your answer. If you guys have any questions, let me know.